Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of SuperFantaFi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Doctor Who special, The Giggle, part of the 60th anniversary. Great episode / special. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, I didn't realize Neil Patrick Harris is going to be in this playing the villain Toymaker, which I thought was kind of interesting. I was like, who is this villain? I didn't know it was a classic Doctor Who villain. I mean, there's a lot of villains that have popped up over the course of, once again, my experience with Doctor Who is only everything from Eccleston 9 on. It's been my experience. So I've never seen the original run and series of the Doctor Who. But either way, it seems like this is a villain from, I mean, I'm sure like the Cybermen even, I'm sure the Daleks in particular probably date back then, but this is a villain that hasn't been used in the canon since the first Doctor. Well, what we know of to be the first Doctor of, you know, the whole Thomas Child thing, but like who we know as the first Doctor, technically speaking. But either way, just the introduction, and I even love the whole thing of like, oh yeah, your accent is slipping. I was like, because I was like, why get Neil Patrick Harris to do an accent? No, I mean, I get where you at, but I'm like, why even? It's like, oh, it's part of the game, it's part of the play. I was like, okay, so you're playing into that. But either way, I'm trying to think if it's the first time I've ever seen Neil Patrick Harris play a villain. Because I'm mostly familiar with like his more comedic roles, so I haven't seen it like a lot of probably the more dramatic roles that he's played. So I've never seen, I guess arguably you can be like Barney. Barney had his villainous moments being the womanizer that he was. But either way, you start off in 1925. He's selling these toys and to the guy who's making the television. And how you're like, okay, so how does that connect with what's all going down in present day? So Unit comes into play. Well, first and foremost, the Doctor learns that like people are going crazy because everyone thinks they're right, which I do love that is a bit of a commentary on nowadays. I mean, I'm curious how people are going to feel about that, but it's like maybe some people are like, oh, it's a little on the nose, but I'm also like, sometimes you don't need. Sometimes subtlety doesn't always get through. There are situations where you will need a hammer instead of a scalpel. I guess a saw would be a better example, but for the analogy. But yeah, like people just think they're right. The guy in particular, he was like, no, I pay taxes, so this road is my road. So I'm the one that gets to decide who gets to drive on it and stuff. And so Kate shows up and you see Shirley's return, and it's like, right, the gang's here, and I just love him being like, oh man, Kate, like your dad, I remember when he was trying to keep this a secret, and look at you being able to have it out in the open. It looks very Avengers Tower-esque with just like how massive it is, like how just out in the open it is. But it's like, yeah, people are thinking they are right all around the world. It seems like this happened because South Korea ended up putting up a satellite. Now, like, everywhere in the world, everyone, like, the whole world is kind of, like, technically, I guess, speaking online in its capacity, which obviously I don't think real life-wise that's the case. I'm sure there's still some blanket spots, but obviously, for the sake of the story, yes. Like, everyone's 100% connected. Everyone's got a screen now, and this whole situation finally popped off now out of eating time because of that. And it's something that's been bubbling beneath the surface. And I love the Doctor revealing it's because there's a certain pattern to like the brainwaves of someone, the peaks of their brainwave when they think they're right, because everyone at Unit has a special device. And they never explained it. The Doctor kind of brushes it off of like, yeah, why Donna and Mel, which we'll get to in a second, aren't affected. And it's most likely like because they're kind of out of sync because of their time in the TARDIS, which we meet another previous companion, because obviously you do that during these, especially the anniversary ones, but we even got it wasn't it during the Flux situation? No, like the previous special, Jodie's final special, 13th final special was involving other former companions and stuff. So either way, it's kind of sad hearing her story a little bit. She was like, oh yeah, like she was one place and she was enjoying the adventure. And she's like, oh yeah, I was with someone that was like 101. They tripped and fell over a whiskey bottle and died. And she's like, it's kind of the wild way to go after everything. But then by the time she came back home, she's like, I wanted to face everything I was running from. But by the time I got back, my family was already gone. It's like, just kind of creeping in some really depressing stuff of just like, right, when you run away, and that is a situation of where does the time go. Feels very befitting with the Doctor, be considering like, well, what does the doctor, every time the Doctor brings you back, you never come right back to where you thought you were going to come back to, and it is that thing of what do you end up missing. It ends up being something that a lot of the Doctor's previous companions kind of learned that the hard way. Like, especially like everyone with 13 kind of learned that the hard way. And in particular, Yaz was kind of struggling with that, I think, a lot too. But you get the point I'm trying to make. But yeah, I love the Doctor revealing like, oh, these, because it seems like it's like a melody or something, and everyone's like, why does that sound so familiar? And the Doctor reveals it's not a melody, it's a giggle. There is the first, that doll that was sold at the beginning of the episode was the first thing put on television, and it's secretly been there underneath the surface of everything for the past like 98 years television wise. It's just been subtly there, and now that everyone's connected, it's kind of hit this like synchronization across the world, and now it's like it's there infecting everyone's mind, making them think they're right. And obviously the Doctor going into the thing of like, yes, humans are intelligent, they are beautiful, but they can also be stupid with how, like, they can be stupid with that intelligence, that they are so capable of terrible things. And basically this giggle just brings out the worst of humanity. Makes you give into the worst sides of yourself, because it's not like this, oh, made this pop up in all of you. It brought to the surface what was already there, what is underneath every human being, what we are capable of, what is kind of sadly written in our nature and our DNA, that hate, that capacity to like fight and, you know, kill and just do all these terrible things. So the Doctor decides to go back to 1925, finding out like this is where exactly the signal first went out, well, the giggle, and they end up going to the shop where the toy maker is. Which, like, obviously when I see the toy maker, it makes me think of a multitude of villains, specifically comic book villains, specifically DC villains. There's like so many. I'm like, oh, there's a little ventriloquist there. There's a little trickster. There's a little Riddler. There's a little, obviously the biggest comparison, Toyman. So there's like this villain is kind of like an interesting, like, I just can't help but like, oh, it feels like a little like a culmination of something. I mean, there's a little, I think you could say there's a little Joker in there, but I guess the argument could be like, well, I guess the Master would be kind of the Doctor's Joker, but it's also like, yeah, but I guess it's like you could be the Master's the Doctor's Joker / Lex Luthor in a lot of capacities. But either way, tangents and all that aside, I just think that's so interesting. Such a creepy villain, and just all about games and how like psychotic they are. Just the whole point of like, oh yeah, the first game that was ever created was the ball, and it came about because someone threw a ball and killed someone, like picked up a rock and threw it and killed someone. And even saying in the year 5 billion, the last human will pick up the skull of their rival and being like, this is the last bomb. It's like, that's so deranged and psychotic. And even to the point that the Doctor's like, Donna, go back to the TARDIS, and she's like, you never tell me to do that. Who is this person? And once again, it's someone from the distant past. And for the Doctor, he blames a lot of this on himself, because it's like, right, we're in his realm, like he decides the games and stuff. He's able to kind of warp reality to kind of take you into his space where things kind of play his way, because it's all twisted fun and games. And for the Doctor, it's just, he's worried. He's like, for the first time, like, he's like, he's like, back then I was so certain, and I thought because I got the TARDIS into like an underverse, and that's where I challenged the Toyman, and I ended up winning and escaping. But it's like, we're tying this back into Wild Blue Yonder. It's like the game I played, what I did, you know, at the end with the salt at the edge of the universe, because he had specifically said that they're the realm between reality and what is possible and what isn't is really thin there. And it's like he knew there'd be a consequence for it. He believes because I did what I did, I played a game at the end of the universe, and the Toyman was able to use that as kind of like a lock on and was able to find his way to this reality. And it's like, it's on me. And it's just like, because it's like, she's like, well, you'll figure it out. And he's like, what will I figure? He's like, what? That, you know, I'm always so certain. I'm so certain. Without the sonic screwdriver, without the TARDIS, without the Time Lord, who am I? who am I now? And I was like, ooh, once again, getting into some beautiful psychology that I don't think it even really, I don't know. I don't remember if I ever really talked about it in such a way, especially as the timeless child stuff was unveiling over the course of Jodie's time as a doctor, but just the real irony behind the fact is the doctor changes so many faces, and for the first time in their lives, they are having an identity crisis. Like, who am I? You know? I was like, how can I be? Because it's also this situation of, I'm not certain you will be safe. I wonder, did the doctor not have a companion the last time he took on the toy maker? I'm curious. But Donna's like, well, maybe, well, you saved me, so maybe this time it's my turn to save you. So they both get separated, and the doctor meets that guy from the beginning of the episode. He was like, oh yeah, I couldn't get away from the Giggle, so I came back and played a game with him, and he turned me into a puppet. This is where I was really getting those, like, ventriloquist vibes in that regard. Obviously, that's one very specific puppet in a ventriloquist case, but you get what I'm trying to say. But it's like, yeah, like, just how twisted it is that the toy maker's like dancing him on the strings. It's like, yeah, he makes me dance and prance, and I can never go home. Like, what my mother said, if she could see me like this. Like, he's very Pinocchio. It's almost very, that's another thing. He's like a very twisted Geppetto. In a lot of capacities too. And Donna has to deal with the little dolls, like the wife doll being like, oh yeah, my husband's gone, he never came back, the children missed her. And it's like a little, like, kind of reminds me a little of, wasn't there, I was about to say a little Chucky-ish, because like the killer dolls and stuff, like obviously you always associate that with Chucky, but it's just its episode was creepy as hell in that regard. And so ultimately Donna and the doctor find their way to the toy maker, and it just knows everything, because he knows exactly who Donna is, which is so interesting, because it's not really like a singular being. It is a reality altering entity, so it kind of knows anything and everything. It's just kind of like, I guess, like when it came into this reality, it absorbed all this knowledge, because it's like, yeah, it's 1920 something, yet you already know who Donna is, because the doctor does see the toy maker present day. So it is a thing of, it's just like, I'm just kind of everywhere all at once. And kind of starts parading around the doctor's trauma of like, oh, like, what has the doctor been up to post leaving you? Oh, there was Amy. Oh, she got touched by a weeping angel. Oh, there was Clara. It's like, well, she's still alive in that second. It's like, oh, well, that's all right then. I don't know why. I like that switch up and being like, well, that's all right then, dropping the accent and kind of talking in that capacity. And then there was Bill. It's like, to be fair, couldn't throw too much shade towards 13, because Jodie didn't lose any companions. It's like, well, to be fair, she lost Grace, but that's kind of, but it's like everyone survived. Yaz, Dan, Ryan, Graham, so kind of worked out. But it's still throw the Flux situation in your face. It's like, yeah, a lot of death and destruction on that part. And it's like, did all that happen? And it's like, yeah, it did. And what was so interesting too is, obviously, it's like, right, I challenge you to a game that, even though they are, I guess there's I'm keep more DC villains popping in my head. I'm like, oh, a little Mad Hatter-ish too. I was like, Jesus, bringing all the references today, aren't you, Michael? But the fact is, like, it's like, right, you are bound by a very, very specific set of rules. Like, you have to play the game. Even Donald's like, who'll cheat? And even he was like, shame on you, like, even suggesting I would. At the end of the day, the game is what the game is. It's all about winning or losing. And even if it's shuffling the deck and being like, oh, all that I've conquered, I even turned, God into like a jack-in-a-box. And even being like, yeah, the master, like, was on their last leg begging for their life, and I turned them and sealed them forever in this gold tooth. I was like, interesting. Figured that'd come back into play, which it does. But also it's like, right, I challenged someone, the one who waits or something like that. And it's like, who's that? And it's like, the person I ran away from, I never finished the game with. And it was like, who is that? And the toy maker was like, that's someone else's game. Which I'm like, ooh, I love me this cryptic, ominous stuff. Which I'm like, is that supposed to imply? My initial thought was, is that supposed to imply 15s? I don't know. Because the toy maker didn't see 15 coming later on, so that it's not like you're fully omniscient, but it makes me wonder, like, Is that what that's indicating? Like, who else's game would it be? Who was like, it's not you. Well, I guess it's like, right, my game with someone else is ours. Like, when we're locked in battle or in a game, that's between me and this person, not you. But it could mean that 15 eventually makes this person. But I don't think that's what it could just be like. No, that's someone else's game. Meaning, I don't talk about anyone else's game. Just like I wouldn't talk about our game with anyone else. So maybe that's kind of more so the implication of like my opponents are my opponents. We don't really talk about the other games that are in play. I wonder if that the only other active game. Technically, this was never an active game because it's like, right, the toy maker lost to the Doctor previously, and this time they split the deck. Higher number wins, and the Doctor loses. But the Doctor's like, I won before, and you lost, so that makes us even, which means by the game of 1 versus 1, it's best of 3. And so the toy maker takes this present day. They try to triangulate where it's like, right, there's a doorway which the toy maker went through. Like, if we can triangulate that, whether it's on this planet out in space, toy maker shows up, dance on. I was almost expecting like a full musical, but it didn't end up being that case. But it's kind of like wild and crazy, just like, oh, let me twerk. Like, it felt, once again, another comic book reference. At least this time it's across the pond at Marvel. And I was about to say, it reminds me of Thanos reality stoning stuff in Infinity War. Especially when he turns those guards into like balls and it's like, oh, they're dead. And so like, we can't do anything about that. At least the reality stone stuff could kind of be reversed to some small extent. But yeah. And just like going around like spinning Mel and making her like fall, or just like dancing Kate into a wall. It's just like none of the bullets all turning into flowers and stuff. It's like, wow, like how do you beat someone like this? Because everything's a game. Because even the Doctor's like, what if I told you he could control atoms with a thought? And Charlie's like, is that how it works? And it's like, no, it's just you bringing it up that before, like, you look at the world as order and chaos, but when it comes to the toy maker, none of that matters. It's all about the game. Because they had tried to destroy the satellite to kind of disrupt the signal. I didn't even talk about it because I thought it was so, going back to like the point I brought up earlier about the whole aspect of how this is kind of a commentary on present day of why the toy maker is doing this. It's because it's a game where everyone wins and everyone loses, because he's like, by making everyone right, it's like, the fact is, you jump down each other's throat, you can say stuff online, you try to cancel each other. It's like, at the end of the day, now everyone's right, but so you're winning all the time, but you're also losing, and it's just this perpetual motion of that back and forth of just. And that, because he's fascinated with this world, because like just the games that they play, the deceit, the manipulation, the ghosting, the this and that, every facet of their lives is like, oh yeah, locking yourself in your bedroom for so many times, like playing with your joystick, game controllers and stuff. It's like you play with blocks that you build on top of each other that fall. It's just like there's so many games in this world, both the more physical games you think of, and then like the more mental, societal games in some regards, of just like interpersonal games of like ghosting and manipulation. So he ended up picking up the cannon they were using or the device they were using to destroy the satellite. Now has control of it, and it's just that line of, where were the people, the staff that were here? It's like, oh, they should still be falling right now. I was like, oh, that's. And you saw some people looking over the edge. It's like, that's really depressing. It's like, yeah, we're so high up. It's like, yeah, they might still be falling right now. And then like, they might be hitting the ground soon enough. It's like, Jesus, that's dark. And so the Doctor's just like, right, you are what you are. You have such capacity in you. You're as powerful as you are. You can rewrite reality. You can turn bullets and guns into rose petals. So why do what you do? Why be evil? Why not do good? But for him, it's like, this face hides something more. This is just the face. It hides so much more. I exist beyond good and evil. All there is winning or losing. It's the game. That's all there is. That is my existence. That's what I exist for. I don't I don't need something as trivial as good and evil. That means nothing to me. And even the Doctor's like, yeah, but I'm in the same boat of, I've had so many faces that have hidden, like, gone by what hide kind of all that I am. And for the Doctor, it's like, right, this is our game, so you need to like keep this game with me. Do not endanger the other people. But it's like, right, but we got to play by the rules. The first game I ever played with you was with one doctor. The second game I played with you was with this doctor. So now, by those rules, we have to move on to the next doctor. And when he got hit, I was like, wait, are we bringing the regeneration into the fold? I was like, is that what we're doing? I wasn't, obviously with these situations, the regeneration's always at the end of the episode. So I'm like, well, we're nearing the end of the episode, sure. But I'm like, are we bringing 15 in to be kind of like, that's so interesting. I mean, I guess it's not the same, but it's almost kind of, I don't know if this is meant to be a parallel. It's kind of similar to 10 because, well, 10 was kind of unconscious for a lot of the episode, and then at the very end of the episode woke up after like regenerating the entire time. I think the doctor slipped in and out over the course of the episode, but it was like I think it was like the Christmas special, the first Christmas special with Tenet. If I remember correctly, it's been a very, very, very long time since I've seen early. It's been like, God, over a decade since I've seen early those seasons of Doctor Who. But either way, there is an element of like, oh, you're regenerating now, and it's like, it's okay. Like, we'll be by his side while he dies. And it's like, well, it's not deaf and dumb. I was like, I know. And then I was like, you're gonna be someone amazing because all of you are amazing. And in this moment, the doctor's regenerating and nothing happens. And it's like, wait, what happened? It's like, huh, something's different this time. Pull. It's like, what? Yeah, pull. And then they start splitting. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then the other doctor, it's shooting Gatwa. It's 15 being like, oh, just push. And it's like, it's you. It's me. I'm me. That's so interesting. So they push off of each other and then they hug. It's like, what the hell is going on? And it's like, by regeneration, it's like, yeah, it was a myth amongst Time Lords and stuff about like this being a thing. Who knew it was possible? So now it's like, they're both here. I also love that the entire time it's like, it's like, well, you got the shirt and the tie, but you didn't get the pants. Tenet kept the pants. I'm like, I love that you're in shoes and underwear, and I love we also don't acknowledge it at all. But it's like, right, we're in our respective situations, so it's like, right, we both challenge you to a game, but the toy maker's like, no, that's not fair. It's like, no, it is fair because you decided to do what you did. It's not our fault that the game played out this way. You're the one who set this in motion, so you can't complain about the game playing the way it is. So let's start off with the first game to be the one that ends this, and that's playing ball. So they toss it, and I love that 15 at one point threw it to 10. 10 was like, what? Well, 14 being like, what are you doing? I'm on your side. It's like, yeah, sorry about that. And the tossing back and forth, getting super extra with it as well. But yeah, the first one to drop the ball loses, and the toy maker does. It's like, yeah, you're up against two doctors. I wouldn't be the first time anyone's had to go toe-to-toe with two doctors, but in this very unique capacity, interestingly enough. And then the toy maker like ends up losing. And it's like, right, because I won, I banned you from the universe forever. But the toy maker's like, my legion will be here soon. Gets locked away in the box. We also see the master's tooth, the tooth that is the master, and we see, looks like a woman's fingernails pick him up. I was like, it'd be interesting if we brought Missy back in some capacity. I'd love to see Michelle Gomez return, but because the last time we saw her was when she got shot by, this is season 10, right? When she got shot by the Master. And I believe that was series 10, right? When she got shot by the Master, or who ended up, it's like, oh, like, and forcing Missy to regenerate. Could have been someone else, but I'd be like, I think that'd be very poetic considering, like, oh, the Doctor's situation being what they are in now, and the Doctor having run into previous Doctors. It'd be fun, just fun, if we ended up, did a similar thing with because once again, the Master still being in play, because obviously you're not going to get rid of the Master that easily. It's also poetic considering, like, I think that was also meant to be what it was, considering, well, the last person Tennant's Doctor went up against was the Master, if I remember correctly. So it is very poetic in that regard. But, obviously, Tennant's Doctor is like heartbroken about everything. It's like, how many people died? It's like, and even 15 like hugging him and being like, no, it's okay, we can't save everyone. That guilt is kind of driven the Doctor, and it ends up being this beautiful point between the doctors as they talk about everything, where it's just like everything that we've been through, even bringing up Sarah Jane, which is really sad. It's like she died, and he's like, I loved her, and it's like, well, she even saying she's going now, it's like, because she's a previous companion. She even had her own spin-off. Sadly, that actress passed away maybe a few years ago. I wasn't that aware, but there's like a spin-off show that followed her, and she ended up, I think the show never continued because she passed. Like, I think it was going to go for a 6th series, but they ended it because the actress who plays Sarah Jane sadly passed away. So that was kind of like one of those things. But it's also just 15 talking about everything that they've been through, everything that they've experienced, and it's just all we've done is move forward. We've never taken a stop to be time to stop to be like, what the hell? It's always been one thing after another, after another, after another, after another. We never stop. And for Tenet, no, I'm fine. It's like, no, we're not fine. You just fix yourself with basically every time you regenerate. That's our version of therapy, but it's not. We're going to therapy out of order. We're trying to like get therapized out of order. And even Donna's like, he's saying you need to stop. But for the doctor's like, I don't know if I can. And Donna's like, right, I think I know the reason why you were meant to get this face, because it was time for you to come to find me, but also like to like find home, to settle down, like to stop for the first time in your life. Because every time the doctor regenerates, it's like you move on, because that was the whole point too of, right, you just move on to people. Like, when do you ever just stop? And the doctor doesn't. It's actually interesting too when you think about Tenet, because there is a not even half human, there's a human version of Tenet's doctor with Rose living in a different universe with her mom and dad. We haven't seen them since the series 2 finale, but because I know Rose came back during series 4 during the whole Dr. Donna situation, like some other companions had shown up and stuff, but I want to say it's very poetic in that regard of like, yeah, that doctor got to live as a human with Rose. Now it's like this one. I was like, well, she is married, so there's not anything gonna happen. But it's like, no, it's not like that. There are some people who catch feelings for the doctor, but it's like, it's not like that between Donna. It's like, hey, we're best friends, And it's like, I don't know if I can really let the TARDIS go, And 15's like, wait, we're still in that little weird pocket where the toy makers like game is still in play enough that the wiggleness of the universe, and ends up pulling out a mallet, and it's just like, right, I won the game, you got your prize, I never got mine, so here, and whacks it and copies the TARDIS. And I love, there's apologizing, yeah, sorry about that, I didn't mean to do that, but yeah, showcasing the TARDIS and just how different it is. Hey, now it's wheelchair accessible as well, so that's pretty dope. And so 15, sneaking off into the TARDIS, and Tennant's like, are you just going to leave without saying anything? And it's like, oh, of course not. I wouldn't do that to you. So they hug it out, and hugs out with Donna. It's like, right, look after him. And it's like, right, so where are you going to next? It's like, I don't know. The universe is out there waiting. So I got to go. So later. And it is this beautiful goodbye, and just like, be careful, and, good luck. And it's so beautiful. Just kind of being able to say that goodbye, and just having the doctor be there with everybody, with his family, his niece Rose, his best friend Donna, his brother-in-law Sean, the evil stepmother. She's like, oh, I haven't even gotten started yet. And what was it? Mad Aunt Mel. And I was like, it's so beautiful. It's like the doctor's like, for the first time, I think in a very, very long time, especially considering the doctor learning so much about themselves when it comes to this timeless child stuff. It's like, right, I am happy, because Donna's like, you don't have to stay here forever. It's like, who knows what the future will hold, but for the first time, it's like, do you miss it? It's like, for the first time, I'm happy. I'm, finally found home, and cutting back to 15 and him smiling, universe is out there waiting, and it's very beautiful ending on the regard. I noticed this at the beginning, and it's kind of sad, like, as I brought up before, as we got the message at the end of the last episode about Bernard, the actor who played Wilf. I guess before they could film the 3rd special, he ended up passing before they filmed the 3rd special. I don't know what the production schedule was like, but maybe it was in that sad spot. But they got him for wanting that to me is beautiful in its own regards. Sadly, that's why they were kind of hiding his face. Like he probably would have been maybe a little more involved in this in that regard. Maybe not. I don't know. But they probably had to change some stuff after he passed. They probably might have had him a little more involved in this. So rather than, and they obviously didn't want to do any like recasting situations. So it's like, oh yeah, he's out there like shooting at moles. It's like, oh, but I love moles, so I gave them protective shields. It's like, you love moles? Yes, I love moles. And it's just, it is sweet that the Doctor gets to enjoy his family. It's like, yeah, it's still got a TARDIS of my own, so we can go on some wacky adventures. Pop in from Mars again, and it's like, oh, you're gonna be in so much trouble. It's beautiful. I love that. Just kind of being able to settle down for the first time in forever. And that means Tennant's Doctor is always going to be in play if need be. So if he ever decides like he's up for returning in whatever capacity. So it's like, right, this was what it was meant to be. It's like you to kind of come to terms a little bit with yourself, but also take a break. It's like, I get to kind of continue on, but this is you, like, for the first time in forever, we're in a very unique situation because of the bi-regeneration. So take this time to breathe and live and enjoy life, so... Said, like I said, leaving so many breadcrumbs for stuff like the Toymaker 2 always make a return, but also the Master, and obviously we have Ncuti Gatwa's, debut as 15, so that's dope. And once again, it's almost, it also kind of reminds me of a little bit, because also tied to Tennant is like, right, he had it, because he was still in that regeneration process, during that Christmas special, he lost his hand. I think the first episode was Tennant's first episode was a Christmas episode. They're not always, but sometimes some of the episodes are Christmas episodes, like the Doctor's first like official episodes as the Doctor's. But yeah, he lost his hand, and that tied into obviously the Torchwood stuff. But yeah, lost his hand and ended up regenerating it because he was still in that regenerative process. So it kind of, there's a lot of parallels that I don't know if I'm reading too much into when it comes to the whole Tenet of it all. But yeah, thought there's just kind of a beautiful ending. And it's still part of the 6th year, so I would assume the Christmas special also falls in that category, but either way, I just thought this is beautiful. Something I should also end this on that I think is kind of unique about Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, just in relation to my experience with Doctor Who. Ncuti Gatwa will be the first Doctor I was introduced to outside of Doctor Who. I've talked about that before, like every Doctor, I'd even go as far as every companion from Eccleston on has always been my first introduction to the like I said, the actor playing the Doctor, or even the actors playing their companion. Whereas Ncuti, I've not seen a lot of it. To be fair, it's been a couple years. It's just a show that's been on the back burner. Sex Education, I want to watch it, deep dive into. I just haven't taken the time to, but because I've heard nothing but good things, and the little I saw, I really liked. It's just been sitting on the back burner so long. But yeah, I've seen Ncuti in that first before I saw him as the Doctor, so he kind of ends up breaking that trend a little bit, which is kind of interesting. So, but I'm excited. We've got maybe 2 weeks or something before the next special, the Christmas special. So I'm excited to see what ends up going down. Once again, I'm going to avoid trailers. I don't want to know anything. I'm excited to see how this all plays out and where this all goes and what adventures Ncuti has, and get even more experience with his Doctor, because it's so interesting because we're always get that little tail end, but we got a little bit more with his Doctor than we typically do with the new Doctors, when they're first introduced. Like I said, it's always at the end of an episode, right? It's kind of almost like a almost a post-credits, or rather pre-credits type of thing, like at an epilogue of an episode. So to kind of get that get more of Ncuti as to 15 is going to definitely be interesting. So I'm excited. Like I said, we got probably about 2 weeks or so before the next special. And even then, it's going to be the next series won't come out until 2025, if I remember correctly. So, but we'll enjoy the Doctor while we have them. So I'm excited to see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next special. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.